Boys and girls, I am Mr. Chow. Please have a look at the yellow box here on the screen. In this video clip, you will learn one of the three processes of heat transfer, which is conduction, one factor affecting conduction, and three examples of application of conduction. The screen showing up to you here is exactly the same as your book. So turn to page 102 now. Prepare yourself also with a pen and write down the aim shown here anywhere on page 102. This aim will disappear from your screen in 30 seconds. Heat transfer. Energy can be transferred from one place to another. So now we have to get to know the meaning or the definition of heat transfer first. Energy can be transferred from one place to another. For example, you feel hot when you sit near a fire. This is because thermal energy is transferred from the fire to you. This transfer of thermal energy is called heat transfer. Conduction is one of the three processes of heat transfer. We will learn about it now. First of all, we will have to have a look at a demonstration. It demonstrates conduction along a copper rod. Have a look at this particle 5.6. Have a look at the aim. The aim of this demonstration experiment is to examine conduction as a process of heat transfer. You will be provided with a number of these apparatus. As you can see, the way how you put your apparatus and materials is like this. First, you write down copper rod, and then you have to state the number of the apparatus you need, and so on and so forth. So, these are the apparatuses and materials you will need in this demonstration experiment. I'm going to show you a video clip about this demonstration experiment very soon. But I would like to draw your attention to the steps of this experiment first, before you literally watch the video. Your teacher will set up the apparatus as shown. 3 drawing pins, A, B, and C, A, B, and C, are stuck along the copper rod using roughly equal amount of wax. You should be able to remember the reason why we need an equal amount of wax, as you have learned from me earlier on in September and October about scientific investigation. A number of variables in this experiment has to be kept constant. That means has to be kept the same. For example, the equal amount of wax should be kept the same. We should be only changing one thing in this experiment. That is the distance between the drawing pin and the fire. And then the next instruction or the next step is to heat one end of the rod with a Bunsen burner. And we have to find out which drawing pin falls first and which drawing pin falls last. Now, let's have a look.
In this practical, we will study the transfer of heat by conduction in a copper rod. Evenly coat one end of a copper rod with some wax. Stick metal drawing pins at regular intervals along the coating. Heat the other end of the rod with a Bunsen burner. Observe what happens to the pins. How is energy transferred along the rod?
Now you see the result of the experiment. Answer this question now. You have 10 seconds. Okay, now I will show you the answer. Drawing pin C falls first. Drawing pin A falls last. Let's continue. Conduction may occur within an object or between two objects in contact. Underline this point. In practical 5.6, thermal energy is first transferred from the hot side of the copper rod to the cold end, and then from the copper rod to the wax. Here a little summary is that thermal energy can be transferred from the hotter part of an object to the colder part of the object, or from a hotter object to a colder object in contact. This type of heat transfer is called conduction. Conduction in different materials. There are many factors affecting heat transfer by conduction. Let us study one of these factors. Practical 5.7. Conduction in different materials. Aim: to study conduction in different materials. So the factor that we are going to study is the different materials. The apparatuses and materials given to you are iron rod times 1, copper rod times 1, and the rest of them for you to see. Before I show you the video, let's have a look at the steps of the experiment first, so as to gain a better understanding on what is going to be done in the experiment before you literally look at it, before you actually look at it. Number 1. Step 1. Put an iron rod, a copper rod, a glass rod, and a wooden rod into a beaker of hot water. Step 2. Feel the ends of the rod after 1 minute. So you have to touch it and feel it. Which rods become warm is what you have to observe. So observation doesn't only use your eye. You can also use your hand, your skin. And then you have to elaborate from the result and try to say something more. Okay, let's have a look at the video.
Now we will investigate what kind of solid conducts heat faster. Put a wooden rod, an iron rod, a copper rod, and a glass rod into a beaker of hot water. Feel the ends of the rods to find out which rod gets hot first. Which material conducts heat the fastest?
Oh, there we go. So, I will give you 10 seconds to try to think of the answer of this question. Let's have a look at the answer. 2A. Which rods become warm? It is the copper rod and the iron rod. Please write it down. B. What can you tell from the results? Conduction occurs faster in the copper and iron rod than in the glass and wooden rod. Practical 5.7 that you have seen just now shows you that conduction occurs faster in some materials. These materials are good conductor. Please underline it. Materials in which conduction occurs slowly are poor conductors, or we have a special name as being good insulators. Conduction can occur in solid, liquids, and gases. In general, metals such as silver, copper, and iron are good conductors. Metals are good conductors in general. That means many of them. Non-metals such as glass, wood, water, and air are good insulators. Metals are good conductors. Non-metals are good insulators. So this is a short summary of what we have just been talking about. There is something extra to learn as a bridge for you to learn about DSE physics in the future. Colder or not, if you touch the drinks in a refrigerator, a can will probably feel colder than a carton. In fact, they are at the same temperature. Metal is a good conductor. Is the reason why a can will probably feel colder. Metal is a good conductor, so a can carries thermal energy away from your hand much faster than a carton does. This makes a can feel colder. You will learn more about conduction in DSE physics. Now you will also learn about 3 applications of conduction and insulation. Number 1, cooking pots. Pots are usually made of metal so that they can quickly transfer thermal energy from the stove to the food. Their handles are usually made of insulator like plastic or wood. Therefore, we can hold the handles without getting burned because plastic and wood are good insulators. The next application of conduction and insulation is food containers. Foam is a good insulator. It is commonly used to make food containers. Foam containers keep food hot, and they can hold them without getting burned. And we can hold them without getting burned. Foam is a good insulator because there is lots of air in it, and air is a good insulator. The third application of conduction and insulation is hair and clothes. Some animals are covered with fur or feathers. The fur and feathers trap air. Since air is a good insulator, it conducts thermal energy away from the animal body very slowly. This helps the animal to stay warm. So it is again the air, which is a good insulator, help insulate your body. So much for the three applications of conduction and insulation. And this is the end of this video clip.